Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches around the world, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy, the Road Dog, with, of course, none other than the king himself, calling from the palace of all palaces. Is that a word? The king himself, King Karl. How are you, big shooter?
I'm doing good, Shoots. How you doing, buddy? Good intro. Dang, man. We're sounding like a rock star. You must have had your Wheaties this morning.
Well, you know what it is, right? So here's the deal. When I know I need to step up my game, when I read an email coming in from KB himself, asking people if they have extra chairs available for the holidays, I figure I must be doing something wrong because I have some chairs to deliver to your place next week.
I got a lot of feedback on that. Well, maybe we should set it up. So if they're listening, there's probably a pretty good chance for you getting my daily emails. But what was what was it? I can't quite remember. It was something to do with if you don't have any family.
First off, if you're looking to get some good nuggets in the morning and perhaps even slightly offended, definitely go to focus.com and subscribe to Karl's daily email. Because as he put it, breaking news, a man was admitted to the hospital with 25 plastic horses inserted in his rectum, but the doctors described his condition as stable.
Stable.
Like, are we doing this now? Are we going to do dad jokes? Like, is this this is a thing now? Anyways, and then he goes in slightly less disruptive breaking news during the holidays. If anyone is alone with no family to spend Christmas with, please let me know. I need to borrow some chairs. Wow. Wow.
I don't know. My dad edits my emails for me, and he thought it was hilarious. So we went with it. Hopefully we didn't upset too many. But the doctor, right? The condition is stable. I thought that was bloody hilarious. So there you go.
Well, it's got a bit of a to it as well, so there you go. All good, but it's all good.
Wow. Shoots. Anyways. All right, let's rock, Road Dog. What do you got for us, bud?
Well, we've got questions pouring in kind of all over the map a little bit, actually, but the first question that came in, sort of time back to last week, question is, you mentioned the importance of improving gross profit margin. I work with a manufacturing company with lots of wastage. Any ways to combat that, help them out. So obviously, time back to last week, we were talking about this very thing, gross profit margin. So specifically for a manufacturing company, but wastage, I would imagine that's the true question here, is they're talking about wastage, which I'm sure when it comes to gross profit margin, you see a ton of. So what advice do you have? Is there anyone that we can help them out?
Manufactured. So, well, I'll tell you a funny story that actually literally a few days ago, had a coach, coach ended up on my phone, and basically his, he's got a client and it's not going very well, yada, yada, yada. There's kind of a conversation of, look, we're going to have to turn this off. There might be a conversation about, returning some fees coming, and he's understandably, he's looking for a little bit of advice, right? That's a smart thing to do. Most people just, freak out. Deer in headlights. And what you need to do is you need to, reach out to mentors and see if they have some guidance for you. And look, in a nutshell, here's what I said. First, little red arrow, you are here. Like, do you want to continue to work with this person, right? Because sometimes a coach-client relationship is just not right, and that's okay, right? Like, Road Dog is not the perfect coach for everybody. I am definitely not the right, the perfect coach for the right, for individuals. Like, there's just sometimes not a fit, and that's okay, right? And by the way, he felt like there was a lot of opportunity there. He wants to continue to work with them. They just, there's a business partner and there's some issues. That's the reason why they haven't got out of the gates. So that's where I had to start with the little red arrow. You are here. What is the situation, right? And namely, do you want to continue? He said yes. And then it was, okay, what? So where I went is, guess what? What are their revenues? What are their profit margins? Okay, it was something like they were doing 500 grand, so pretty small company. But here was, I don't know exactly these numbers were, but they were like 20% gross and they had like 4% net margins. And I'm like, 4%. So first thing, like this is where you start, right? Because you can make some, and by the way, because their revenues are low, ideally we go from 500 to a million. Well, actually, that's not necessarily true, but you get the idea. It's 500 grand. I can help somebody at a million significantly quicker than I can at 500, and I can help somebody at 500 significantly quicker than I can with somebody at 250, right? So that kind of makes sense. But 4% margins, and like we have a program internally where we have a New York accountant. He's got a team of 35 accountants underneath him, and what he does is he will come in free of charge. He'll come in and assess the financial situation for the company, including going over tax returns over the last few years. And it's kind of like a $50,000 magic trick, right? So the first thing I said is, how'd you utilize this program, right? And again, the answer was no. So that was the first thing. But really, Road Dog, what I want to say about that and what my conversation looked like is, look, you need a story. If you approach this, and the way I think most coaches would approach it, like, hey, you didn't do this. I did that. What about X, Y, Z, right? Like, that's not the way to approach it with kind of facts and figures and, think of features and advantages in a sales process, going to details. What you've got to do is you got to go in there with a story, right? And what does every story need? It needs a beginning, it needs a middle, it needs an end, and very important, some kind of conflict. Right. So that's every episode of Seinfeld, Three's Company, Breaking Bad, you name it, Ted Lasso. Every story's got a little bit of conflict. Right. So I'm like, I want you to think of what that story looks like before you speak to her. And he wasn't thinking anywhere along those lines. And not story like bullcrap, story of like understanding the situation. And you gotta get them on the phone, and she needs to re-buy into the dream, where they can go. She needs to be explained in no uncertain terms that, look, we were like, some of the challenges arrived here had a lot to do with the fact that we had made some decisions, and then your business partner stepped in and we had to re-explain this, you know what I mean? Like, basically there were some challenges in and around that, right? Like, so that's, Road Dog, what I, like thinking through a story before you jump on the phone, right? Like, that's important, getting on there and pointing fingers would be absolutely the wrong approach, right? So anyways, okay, so the question was around margins, kind of. So back to like finding margins, and that's what, by the way, when the accountant comes in, this is the kind of thing, like he's going to look at that 4% and go, look, we can take that 4 and I want to be able to, he's going to want to get it to 10. But when he does that, he's literally going to put money straight into their bank account that are more than, going to cover what his fees are. In fact, and Warren, this might be a little bit off topic, but Warren Buffett, I wrote an email in the last very short period of time. And what Warren Buffett says, this is part of the conversation that I had with him that I don't think is really relevant here, but this is what is relevant. Warren Buffett, what does he say? He looks for something that he can buy for a penny, sell for $1, and that's habit forming. Okay. And in the email, I basically said, just drop the mic, walk away, Kobe Bryant style. Like, this is over. Okay. So buy for a penny, sell for $1, and is habit forming. I would write that down. Like, if you want to be wealthy, you want your clients to be wealthy, I encourage you to write that down. There's a chance that it just hit you like a punch in the mouth, the way that it did for me. But maybe it doesn't, as I say it here, but I think that this is the kind of thing that can really, that's a different way of looking at business. I want you to think of chewing gum. I want you to think of Facebook. I want you to think of your Gmail account, right? But again, Gmail account's a bad example, but like, gum, things that are habit forming. Anyway, probably look, just your margins on that are going to be real good, not necessarily in the individual buying, but as a lifetime. Don't just think about the individual, which absolute gross profit margins are about, income on the one transaction. But ultimately, I also want, the margin conversation that I'd be having, that I would be working towards, is over the body of work, right? Like the lifetime value of a client. But bottom line, look, I love the question, Road Dog. Profit margins, like, they're truly magic pill of business, and a large reason why I co-wrote a book, Accounting 101 for Business Coaches. If you don't know margins, I think they said this recently, it's a little bit harsh, but like, if you don't understand profit margins, you're a joker, right? Harsh, but I want for everybody to listen, to delve into this topic, even though you don't feel like you're an accountant, you don't feel like you're a bookkeeper, numbers aren't your thing, right? Completely irrelevant. Stop it. Don't be thinking along those lines, right? Amazing when I think back, Road Dog, like how far I got in my business career, my coaching career, the number of clients that I helped, when I really didn't understand this stuff. Like I was doing it instinctively, but I didn't understand the mechanics, the importance, and kind of the magic of it. Like when you buy something for a penny, and then that thing sells for 10 cents, right? It's a 9-cent gap. It's not like a 9% gap, right? It's basically, it's not like they're 9% more profitable. They're 10 times, it's a 10 times improvement on profitability, right? So again, that 9-cent difference, right? Like you buy something for a penny and you buy something for 10 cents. It's one is 10 times more profitable. Right? And all the funnel hackers and their sell, and drive traffic. I'll let you decide whether, this is where they're starting. This is the way that, the path that they're following with their clients and, for their own businesses. I got to tell you, they're just not, right? And yes, you should drive traffic, and sales matter, and conversions matter. Because without revenue, I can't improve the margins, but understanding that as a business principle, and we've really gone, we've touched on this a number of times over the last number of podcasts, but I hope everybody will take that away and really start to delve deep into it. Just maximum profits, like working with somebody that you don't want them to confuse being busy with being successful, right? Like said another way, if something costs you, like 10 cents, right? And you sell it for 100, that's a 90% margin, right? Road Dog, you get that, right? I buy it for 10 cents, like sell it for $1, right? It's a 90% margin, right? Well, like in any kid, elementary math can get that one done, right? But if you take that margins from 90% to 95, okay, what do you need to do? I want you to think about that instinctively, right? It was selling for $1 with 90% margins, and you want to increase the margins by 5% from 90 to 95, right? How would you get that extra 5? And let me tell you, grab a calculator, do the math, and here's what you're going to find. You've got to sell that same product for $200 to improve the profitability by 5%, not $5, $100, right? So you go from 90% margin to 95. You got to take your price point from 100 to 200. What I'm saying, it's so much easier to increase margin by decreasing the cost, by buying better, than by raising the price. What's going to be easier, to get something for, again, a little bit cheaper, or, getting an extra $100 for a $100 unit? So Road Dog, kind of going through that, but, the translations is business owners are confusing being busy with being successful. They don't have somebody in their ear yelling this stuff, right? Like just, they're not going to do this instinctively on their own. Or here's another one straight out of my book that I like, right? Road Dog, you get a client and they have $800,000 of gross revenues, and they've got 50% gross profit margins and 20% net profit margins, and their break even is $400,000. Okay, so $800,000 company, $400,000 is their break even, 50% gross profit margins, 20% net profit margins. Well, on the first $400,000, okay, they make 20%, so that's $80,000. Okay, on the second 400, above break even, they make $200,000. Okay, so which one would you prefer? 80,000 on 400, or would you prefer 200,000 on 400,000? Obviously, the answer is 200. You have to control, if you want to do that, you got to control expenses, but we've talked about this to death, but I think it's worth saying to death. You have to manage your client psychology, because doing this stuff is boring. You know what I mean? It's just, bad advice is very expensive, right? So anyways, Road Dog, yeah, I'm glad we're getting a lot of questions around gross profit margins. And I think that's, I think it's people. I hope that coaches, if we can inspire them. Like I used to own a hockey rink, and one of the things that you probably don't need to be a hockey coach to know that most kids are kind of obsessed with scoring goals, right? Pretty straightforward. Well, one of the things that I did at my hockey rink is I made an award for the most assists, right? Why? I wanted to change the kids' psyche. Like I made most assists more important than points, right? Because again, I had all these kids running around trying to score goals. And I knew that the teams that won were the ones that were able to move the puck around, right? Like Wayne Gretzky is the greatest point. Like the points that Wayne Gretzky has versus the guy in second is just, I don't know what they are, but he's got like twice as many points, right? He was a master at passing the puck. So anyways, Road Dog, you kind of see the way I'm trying to change the psyche of the kids by rewarding assists versus goals, because instinctively as they went to goals, I would take that to revenues and expenses. Everybody's revenue sexy. It's ego. It's like, oh, I cracked $1 million. I cracked $1 million. But you and I know that crack $1 million. We know people that have done $1 million in a day, and the next day isn't nearly as exciting as you'd think, because their margins are so tight, and then they've got refunds, and they got, you know what I mean? You get it, Road Dog. It's not sexy, man, but it's important.
It's interesting, dude, because it's amazing to me how few people actually know their numbers. And I just want to give a kind of an example here that I ran into last week. I had a conversation with a company that was looking at possibly doing some online marketing, and very, very good contract possibly. But the funny thing is, when I was looking at their numbers, and the big one that stuck out for me is they're a fulfillment company, right? So they actually help solar dealers with their fulfillment of installs. They have a 3% activation rate of the dealers that come to them of actually putting an order with them. So my question is, why do you need more leads when you're only converting 3%, right? Like it's mind-boggling how many people just don't understand their numbers, period.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
The end. Drop the mic. I know,
right?
Man. It's nuts, dude. It's nuts. That's a perfect, that's it, man. That's the example. It's like when everybody goes to Tony Robbins to build a better company, to make more money. And then when you get there, he explains that what you wanted when you got here is very different than what you needed and what you're going to take away, right? So what Road Dog did with that client is he changed. He's like, what they came to him for and what he delivered was very different. But if he doesn't manage their psychology and do it in a way so that they are educated and they're feeling, empowered and kind of like it's their decision versus Road Dog's decision kind of thing, right? Like, again, and it's going to take story. It's going to take education. It's not going to take no, here's what we're going to do. Like that's just not going to work. And if you're a business coach, no doubt you know that, but super important, man. Super important. I love it.
So you mentioned the Warren Buffett thing, which I love. I hope everybody wrote that down. Buy something for a penny, sell it for $1, and it's habit forming. It reminds me of, and you'll like this one. I'm not sure if you heard this one before. It was a rowing team, right? And I think they were an Olympic rowing team. I think they came in second after training their butts off and everything else. Their whole motto between that Olympics and the next one was, will it make the boat go faster?
Go faster. Love it. Yep.
So everything from what I'm about to eat, will this make the boat go faster? This training I'm doing, will it make the boat go faster? Like that psychology. You imagine if a business owner had that psychology inside of wanting to know their numbers, like that would be next level thinking.
Road Dog, freaking love it. Okay, so here's my takeaway that I hope everybody will possibly action. Okay, so what you've got to do, like I've talked about, so Zuckerberg had what I think North Star is what it was referred to as. I don't know if I've heard that somewhere. It was him or it was Gary Vaynerchuk, whatever, North Star. So does it help us grow? So you'd come to Zuckerberg and you'd be like, Road Dog's like, hey, Zuck, I got an idea for the company. And he'd say, what is it? And the framework in his head was, does it help us grow? The same way the rowing team, does it make the boat go faster? If the answer was potentially yes, Zuckerberg would take the meeting. If the answer was no, he didn't take the meeting, right? So then Gary Vaynerchuk's primary question is, does it get me attention? And if the answer is yes, he will undertake it. And imagine if you got a room of 15 people and then I've got a room of 1,500 people, and then somebody's got 150 in the middle. Which one is Gary? I want you to channel your inner Gary Vaynerchuk. Which room are you showing up to? And I would imagine you're going to come to my room with 1,500 people as opposed to 15 or 150, right? Gets you more attention. So I want you, and understand this is your business. You might want to make $1 million and buy a Ferrari. You might have 3 kids under the age of 5 and want to be able to spend time at home and more than happy to just make 150 grand. Like, you got to work out your North Star. Like, what is that question? And then use it as a framework. So every time you go to, it's like taking on a client. Earlier, remember speaking to a coach and he's got a challenge with a client. My first question is, look, do you want to continue with this client? Because the reality is, it's not like there's a shortage of people to take on business coaching out there. It's not a shortage of companies, right, that need a coach. 5% of businesses have got one. So my first question was that. And I don't know if everybody would have gone there. It was more like, how do I salvage this? How do I not give my money back? How do I, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, just whoa, right? So I love it, Road Dogg. And I want everybody, my question, does it help a business coach make 100 grand a year, right? From a standing start. There's my primary, that question. You bring a program, you've got an app, you got something you want to plug into the software. That's where my head's going. Does it help a business coach make 100 grand a year from a standing start? Right. So anyways, I love that. So they got to come up with their equivalent of, does it make the boat go faster? Because Road Dogg, I think they hear this, but then it's not about hearing it and going, wow, Road Dogg, that's an amazing question. It's about, okay, there's a framework, go and adopt your own question. What is it? And then come up with a really, 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 really good question that you own, not Road Dogg's question, not my question, not the rowing team's question, but your question. It'll make your life a whole lot easier. So I love it, Shoots. I love it.
I love that it not just is one thing. It's like everything, every decision that you make. But by the way, that will it get me attention? I actually think, who else used that one very, very often, like every single time? Marilyn Manson, right? Also a person that was, will it? Anyway, I'm not going to. There's no such press. There's no bad press, right? There's only press. And coming back to the gross profit margin, is there what specific things can they do to increase margins? Like, how do you answer that? Do you have some specifics there?
So so it was a manufacturing company, right? There's a metaphor. It's called downtime. And it was. Okay, so just picture downtime, and because you're ultimately, because very important, you want to help. It's one thing to say that, again, it's one thing. Okay, these guys got 4% margins, and saying, hey, we're going to take from 4 to 10. But if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right? And you want to confuse being busy with being successful. Knowing exactly where you're going prior to starting would make life, a lot, probably, create success quicker. What is downtime? So defects is D. So think of, like poor handling and quality control, maybe be like some, defective products, that sort of thing. The O, overproduction, right? So just like picture a restaurant, and what they do is like the guy's super busy, and then it's the owner that's doing the ordering. Okay. Well, the supplier calls up and he says, yeah, just do the same order as last week as last month, right? Well, what happens? They've got too much lettuce already, and they just get a whole nother whack of lettuce, right? And then what happens is the lettuce goes into the freezer. And if you know anything about owning a restaurant, I don't need to taste your salad to know that if you were keeping the lettuce or the tomatoes or the burgers or whatever frozen for too long, frozen period, but then frozen for too long, it's not going to taste as good, right? So basically just managing that kind of thing. Waiting is one of them. Just think Uber. Like Uber went to new heights. As Uber, I've discussed this as network effects. That's a topic I love. But like Uber, the snowball was now rolling down the hill for Uber because their drivers actually don't have that much downtime. So therefore, the guy who's driving the Uber can actually make a decent living. Imagine if you were an Uber driver and you got like 2 calls in an entire day. The next day, guess what you'd say? I'm going to go do something else. I can't make any money. And then it's like I'm on call like a high-end doctor. It's ridiculous, right? So waiting, thinking about that, it depends on the different type of business. But, if, like Road Dog, we're, manufacturing something and we have one wood lathe and like you're using the wood lathe. What am I doing? I'm waiting, right? So these types of things. N is something to do with talent, not utilizing talent, let's call it, right? So, just fully leveraging, your team, the skills within your team, the potential within your team. Just because somebody's younger than you doesn't mean that they don't perform at a higher level, or somebody's younger on the team. Potentially that could be a smart look. A better example is you own the restaurant and there's downtime. The windows need to be cleaned. The chairs need to be put on top of the tables. Do you need to do that at the very end of the night? And in some cases, the answer is yes, but a lot of the time the answer is no. Like somebody could be cleaning the windows throughout the day instead of at the end of the night at the beginning of a shift. But the problem, Road Dog, is that takes management, which a lot of people have poor management, poor leadership. We talked about that a little bit. I believe it was last week or the week before, where there's like 4 levels of making income, and management, implementation is the lowest level. And then management was the second of 4. But like, you got to manage people, right? Like management's not the highest paid activity in the world, but it's significantly higher paid and significantly more important than the implementation, right? T is transportation. Just think of that, like the unnecessary movement of products. If you watch The Prophet and, he'll go into a place, one of the most important things he does is he sets up a system. Like, do you understand how restaurants work? There needs to be what they refer to as flow, because you can't have people running into one another and moving back. You know what I mean? Like me getting out of the way of you. Like you got to be waitresses, and you need to come in one end and food's got to come out the other, right? You can't have people bumping into one another. Maybe a better example is, I believe it's FedEx or one of the delivery companies, but I believe it's FedEx, and they changed all of their routes so the drivers never do a left-hand turn, if you can believe it. Like, how cool is that, right? And why? Because left-hand turns involve street light. Presume you live in North America. A left-hand turn involves a street light, right? So they don't do it. They changed all of their routes only to do right-hand turns, right? So like, how cool is that? But you talk about unnecessary, transportation and unnecessary movements. Excess inventory. I guess I kind of handled that with what I was saying about the restaurant, but just dead stock. Very often you got a business that's scrambling. Margins get crushed with dead stock because it's all paid for, right? And then it ends up getting sold for a loss, maybe break even, or worse, it ends up sitting in the middle of nowheresville. Well, this is cost of goods sold, right? So you're wasting, those chairs that you built are sitting up there doing nothing. That's sucking the life out of your cash flow and your gross profit margins. Where am I? Downtime. M. Road Dog M. Oh, motion. I think so. Okay, an example. One of the things that I would do a lot of the time. Let's assume that you're working in an office, right? So you're working in an office, and I would look at like where the I would look at where the chair and the filing cabinet and that sort of thing is. So I'd be looking at like if they were wasting motion a lot of the time within their own office, one of the first things that I would correct is that. So easy to do, ridiculously overlooked, very, very powerful. I think, again, for a lot of the clients, a lot of our coaches, they might not be working with manufacturing concerns, is kind of what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way here. Going into somebody's office and making it more functional. Like I've had a home office for 2 decades. Almost forever, actually. But I've absolutely worked out of my home office for pretty much the last 2 decades. Well, and by the way, it works for me. I can walk by the TV. I can walk by my theater room. I can walk by distractions. You know what I mean? And I'll go straight into my office. My problem is getting out of my office and going to actually do, you know what I mean? So I don't have that bone. I don't have that worry. So that works very, very well for me. But that could fall under motion waste, where maybe a home office isn't right for a specific individual. That's not what I'm trying to think of. Motion in terms of the restaurant, the office, the filing cabinet, and then E is excess processing, returns online. We talked about that, but there's this lots of just excess process. Just look, you need to, okay, so you sell something online, mugs, t-shirts, whatever. You write the wrong address on the box because it's the quality control will fall in here. You write the wrong address on the box and then it's a whole rigmarole and the client can't find it. And then when the client does ask about the item, and then you need to go, how difficult is it for you or your staff to go track where it is? It's like, it arrived in Minnesota and it will get on the truck tomorrow. Like, how easy is it to be able to relay that information and how readily accessible is that? So anyways, that's downtime, road dog. So those would be some things of thinking about. Just look, poor business owners, they do the wrong things, like lowering prices, adding products, adding services. Do the wrong things, but rich business owners do the right things. And that would be maybe, like niching down, like going an inch wide and a mile deep, creating offer stacks, right? Like create an offer so that your offer is totally different from the competition's offer. Remember, you don't want to be the best. You want to be the only. Well, you do want to be the best. You always want to be world class as a standard, but that goes without saying. Rather than working to be the best, work to be the only, right? Coming up with an upsell. Do you want me to supersize that? Coming up with a downsell, right? Very powerful. You sell swimming pools for a living? Well, sell jacuzzis, right? Get the client set up. Like, if somebody's buying a swimming pool and spending $50,000, I can tell you they have kids under the age of 5, right? Well, a jacuzzi can entertain them as much as a pool almost at that age. Well, if they can't afford the $50,000 pool, maybe you can make some, hot tub sales as an example, or compelling offers, making it really, really difficult for people to say no to you. A mistake a lot of business owners make. I was having, again, a long conversation about this morning, but most people think that everybody needs, I was talking to somebody, she's a psychic, right? She has 100, she'll be listening to this, I would imagine. She has 100 psychics that worked for her at one time, right? And talking about her business unit, how much she paid them and how much they charged. And I just told her, I said, look, if I was the psychic, here's what I would do. Think gross profit margins as I say this. I said, how much does it cost to come get a psychic reading? And it was like it was a few different variables, but it was like hundreds, right? It was like $250, let's just say, right? And I said, with a million % certainty, I would do the psychic readings for free. Okay. And then what I would do is, you're a psychic. If you go to a psychic, there's a good chance second, third, fourth order consequences. Somebody died in your family and you would like to visit them. Well, maybe what you could do is sell a retreat. So it's a psychic. Okay. And here's Lucy. She's in the room. This is what she wants to say. This is what she wanted to remind you of. And then I go, look, here's what we're doing. We're doing a 3-day retreat. It's going to be $10,000, but we're going to invite Lucy, your sister, your mom, your dad, your child, right? And we're going to invite them to the retreat. So if you'd like to come, there's going to be a lot of families. There'll be some emotional support. We'll be doing a little bit of personal development as well, because I think that's part of the grieving process. But if you'd like to come, we can finance it. I've got third-party financing available to do. The bottom line is, I would do the psychic readings for free, which are like hundreds, and then I would sell them into a $10,000 unit where I'd invite them to a retreat. And then part of that would be revisiting with Lucy, I hope I'm not minimizing a dead relative, but you know what I mean? Like revisiting Lucy, but we're going to do it in a retreat and we'll invite her there too, right? Well, I got to tell you that my business model is going to kick the crap out of your business model if my unit of sale is 10,000 and yours is 250. And then, by the way, you leave and there's nothing else to sell them. I said, like, that sounds like a really bad business model, right? But how did I get there? Which is important here, right? Gross profit margin. They're selling a $250 unit and I'm selling a $10,000 unit with massive margin, right? So that's a business model, maybe a little bit, but rich owners do the right things. If I'm a psychic and I do what I just worked on and she works on, making it easier she's trying to come up with ways to drive traffic to her $250 offer. You see how that's not a good use of her time? That maybe not the best use of her time. Just doing smarter things. Wealthy people own the right things as well, right? So like poor business owners kind of do the wrong things. Rich business owners do the right things, but wealthy people own the right things. That's what I'm trying to say here, right? Think real estate, think valuable stocks, think valuable assets. Think of a platform. Again, profit acceleration software. It's a platform, right? Facebook is a platform. Uber, Airbnb, these are platforms. So and valuable businesses with recurring revenues, competing in a growing market. That's owning something. Owning the right things is owning a business in a growing market, right? Owning real estate in a valuable real estate market with a kick-butt school and a sports stadium nearby, something really cool around it. So anyways, just focus on doing less successful, I would say, focus on doing, and then investors and wealthy folks focus on owning, right? I don't know, Road Dog, if I'm dropping that properly, but concentrating and focusing on doing versus focusing on owning will get you very, very different results. Possibly less results in the short term, but massive results over the long term, right? I don't want to own the train lines. I want to own the train tracks, right? Think about that as a metaphor, right? I think, another thing I said, Road Dog, when we were in Cancun, that I get a lot of, having a couple of beers with the folks and whatnot, and I get a lot of feedback and some dialogue around this, but entrepreneurs want to make it, investors want to keep it, right? And it's but I'm an entrepreneur, I'm not earning enough, and I haven't built a process for myself to be able to keeping it because I got to earn it. And I'm okay, but understand the framework is that what stage, and you should start investing when? Yesterday, right? The best time to plant a tree was yesterday, so you might as well do it today. If you only make, let's just use $10,000 a month as an example, just take profit first. Take 10% of that, $1,000, and invest it every month. If you're not going to invest $1,000 on 10, you're not going to invest 100,000 on 1,000,000. The same way that if you don't, provide for charity, if you don't donate and provide, it's Christmas is coming around the corner, right? As we record this, if you're not going to give to a family now, wherever you're at financially, when you really crack it, don't think you're all of a sudden going to become, the super donator. It's a habit. Maybe it's Warren Buffett habit forming. So anyways, I had a lot of dialogue around that, Road Dog. Entrepreneurs want to make it. Investors want to keep it. Understanding that you've got to get there, that you need to make the transition. And it's not like one day, I'm just going to concentrate on, keeping it as opposed to, making it. That's not the way it works. It's a progressive, and maybe like a bit of an 80-20 thing, where maybe right now 80% is what you got to be making and 20% is what you're keeping. And then maybe in the future you can transition towards 80% of your concentration and your wealth is, maintaining it and investing it intelligently, and 20% you're out there pounding the pavement and earning and, doing active deals and whatever, if you're a coaching business, you're coaching clients to make income. I don't know if I'm explaining that all that well, Road Dog, but I really believe that poor people do the wrong things. Rich people do the right things. Wealthy people own the right things. Okay. My opinion is that that's got massive power, and I hope our business coaches can take that away. So there you go, bud. That's what I got, man. What do you think?
Wow. Okay. So a little scrambled, not going to lie. You almost lost me at psychic. So I'm just going to go there. Now we're going to talk about manifestation coaching as well. I don't know. Anyways, no offense to the psychic. Anywho, okay. So a couple of points. Holy smokes, dude. You're all over the map there at the end, because I had a really good one, and I'm going to get there. But first, I'm going to pull a card and shift gears and go down a rabbit hole a little bit further. The habits thing. That's so good, dude.
Yeah.
That's so good. When you look at that, it's you think, I'm going to do this when. That's the mentality of everything, right? I'm going to be happy when. I'm good. No, you got to start now, and you just got to start on a small scale, right? It's sort of but whatever. I love that. I absolutely freaking love that so much. That's so good. Yeah. But you mentioned you'd rather own the tracks than own the train, which is shocking because
the train line.
I'm sure you had lots of train sets growing up. You strike me as the guy that had the massive train sets going. Anyways, isn't that much? that what Elon's doing? He gave away all the plans on how to build the electric car, but because his whole thing was to sell batteries, wasn't that
The battery. This is it, bud. This is it. The car don't go without the battery, man. That's the platform. It's Ethereum versus Bitcoin. It's the blockchain. Yeah, 100%. It's going deeper to the platform. Yeah.
Well, and just think of that. Like, no, I'm going to give you the plans on how to do all this, but you got to come to me for the battery. Like, it's just genius level, right? Like, it's insane. And I got to say, I'm surprised, bro. Of all that list, decision fatigue didn't make your list. I was expecting a Steve Jobs reference or a Zuck, because of always wearing the same thing. Listen, this is why you always just wear sweatpants. Like, it's the same deal. Like, you are like the
homeless Karl
Jobs is what you are. But that's cool. Like, but decision fatigue is another one, right? Like, not burning 100%. Yourself out. You say walking by the TV and all that stuff. Decision fatigue, I'm surprised that didn't actually make your list, quite honestly.
Yeah, look, well, okay, once 100%, but also with decision fatigue should come the framework that you need to make decisions that eliminate other decisions, right? So you just gave a great example. Steve Jobs wore the same thing every day. Don't just listen. It's not about wearing the same thing every day. It's that by deciding that, he didn't need to decide for the next decade of his life what to wear in the morning, which allowed his, to kill brain cells around inventing the iPhone and the iPad and et cetera, et cetera. So again, yes, decision, love it.
Again, will it make the boat go faster? Right?
There you go.
That's it. There. So cool, man. All right. We're almost at an hour here. Holy smokes. Do you want to close us out? What's I don't even know why I'm asking one thing, because there was I don't know, I like things, but if you had to pick one, what's the one thing that you would suggest? Would it be coming up with your own phrase of your equal to will it make the boat go faster? Would that be it?
I 100%. I think again, and it can go on a personal level, right? Like I think maybe they should have, you could have one for your health, you could have one for your relationships, and have one for your business, right? Like again, does it, is this going to make me? If you ask the question, is this going to make my future self healthier? You'd probably stop going to Starbucks in the morning, right? So that's not going to help your boat in your business go faster. So maybe just, designing 3 of them might not be a bad place. Does gross profit margin, maybe that has a place in your question. Like, will this help my clients become more profitable? I don't think that's the right one, but you get it as a framework, as a question that's, visited on a regular basis. Makes a lot of sense. So Road Dog, what I do love is, hearing we're talking about gross profit margins and we're trying to hammer that home. And we're starting to get questions in and around that. And I'm certainly finding that, I'm just seeing a lot more of it in and around us. And I think that's really good. It's not sexy. It's not enjoyable. You got to kind of manage your client state as you go through all this stuff, because it's not as sexy as putting together a kick butt Facebook campaign. But so, yeah, Road Dog, I would say that, the questions and, I don't know. I'm trying to, I like the psychic example, which I might have gone a little bit left field, but gross profit margins. I got to tell you, if I own the psychic business, 100%, I don't want a $250 unit of sale. That just sounds like a horrific business. So actually how I got there, Road Dog, which I might just reinforce this, you don't need to monetize every client that comes with you. So if you did free psychic readings, let's just assume you did 10, you did them for free, or you did them at a loss, or you did them significantly less expensive so that it was easier. You want to pour gasoline on your lead gen, which is the hardest function of any business, right? Generating new clients, not just leads, but clients. So if I did all of that for free, let's assume, and then I'm selling a $10,000 retreat where they're going to meet their loved ones, we're going to do some grief counseling, etc. And so it's really what you'd be selling as a personal development seminar, by the way, if you didn't catch that. But it's a $10,000 unit. Are all 10 people going to say yes? And the answer is absolutely not, right? And you'd have to offer stack, create a really killer offer stack of a bunch of things that you're going to offer at that retreat at $10,000. but not everybody's going to say yes. Probably 3 in 10, a 30% conversion would be seen to be pretty darn good. Maybe you get it to 7 and maybe you fall to 2. But I got to tell you that when you do your math at the end of the year, my model will kick the crap out of the other model generally, because you're pouring gasoline on lead generation. And then you've got the, high unit of sale with high gross profit margins on the other end, right? Because I get no idea how much it's going to cost you to put on this weekend retreat. But I got to tell you, at $10,000, you get 10 people that are $100,000. There's no way that it's costing you 100. You know what I mean? Your margins are going to be sick, right? Like they're going to be like, again, and I'm going to presume that you're going to be able to do the personal development, do the, the guided meditations and that sort of stuff. So you're not going to have to pay superstars to come in. Anyways, that's, there you go. So it's just adjusting the business model shoots.
I want to chase that just for a second, just for 1 second. Yeah. And we're going to go a little long, and I apologize, but just that right there, what you just said. So you need to reevaluate your business model, and instead of viewing it as a moneymaker, view it as another opportunity to screen for the right people. And my only question to you would be this. So first off, and again, Karl, I think this is such an important question. If I had your ideal client, what would you give me? What would you pay me for that ideal client? Does anybody even know what the cost of their actual client acquisition is? Because the whole point of having a front end offer and charging for it typically is to offset your advertising costs to acquire said ideal client. But if you don't know what the cost of your ideal client is, how can you ever, right?
Set a budget.
So rather than looking at it as I need to make $200 off of somebody to do this reading, I'm going to do 10 of them for free. And I'm going to invest $2,000 worth of my time, which you and I both know is not the actual number, to acquire 2 to 3 ideal clients.
Love it. Yeah. Road Dog, I believe this is Dan Kennedy, but most people, what is it? They want to find a customer. Here it is. Okay. So they want to get a customer to make a sale, right? Mm-hmm. What you need to do is make a sale to get a customer. You get it? So think lifetime value, recurring, repeat business equals profit. Okay. If your clients aren't buying repeatedly from you, like this, so you get it. You want to make a sale to get a customer. You want to make a sale to get an ongoing customer. Okay. As opposed to most people are trying to make get a customer to make a sale. And wrong. I hope everybody's taking that away. That's huge. You got to be thinking recurring revenue, recurring sales, repeat sales. That's where the magic is. So that's, bring the customer in to keep selling them other stuff. Don't bring the customer in to put some money in your bank account. Wrong way of seeing it. So there you go.
Yeah. So rather than the $200 sale up front, you sell it for $27 to cover your ad costs to pay for it. You've made the initial sale. You're covering your costs. You're now filtering through. You're getting more perfect clients through. And guess what? You're making the next sale, but only to the people that you actually want to work with.
Yeah. So, okay, now, and then I sell you. So let's just use Road Dog, right? Like he comes and spends the $10,000 to go to my retreat. Well, at the end of the retreat, my question is, what's the next thing, right? Like again, repeat sales. Like you got to be thinking, what's the next thing? And then, by the way, you're like, oh my God, I can't bring them to my $10,000 retreat and make it into a sales pitch. But it's not you're seeing it completely wrong. Your clients are seeing it completely wrong. It's an opportunity for for Road Dog to build a closer and more unbelievable relationship with, the family member that passed away. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what you're doing for her or him, or you know what I mean? But you get it? Like, so you can't see it. You just got to build something and that should be like $100,000, right? But that's going to be creme de la creme and on a cruise ship in the Mediterranean. Because that's where the relative, would like to be. So I hope that's making sense, but you got to continue the relationship, right? You go to, from psychic reading to 10, and maybe the right is $100,000 or $1,000 webinar live dealio, and then it's a $10,000 unit, and then it's a $50,000 unit, right? Or $100,000 unit. But thinking about that buying relationship and thinking about the journey you take the customer on, as opposed to making a sale, getting them in touch with their loved one and saying goodbye. Wrong approach. We're talking a lot about psychics today. That was not the plan.
You know what? What the hell? Actually, you are talking a lot about psychics today. And I just want to say this one thing, and this is like, we're totally rattling off now. It's great. But the thing is, as business coaches, guess what these people are? They're growth minded. What do growth minded people do? They always look for the next thing. So if you can't offer the next thing, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go somewhere else to somebody else who can offer the next thing. So the same is true for your clients. They need to be offering the next thing, because if they're not, they're going to go to the next person. So for you, it's all about, hey, I'm going to 100K.
Oh, okay, Road Dog. Dude, what you just said, again, so here it is, right? Here it is. They come to the free psychic reading, right? They come to the retreat for 10 grand, okay? Who cares about that client and their relative, who unfortunately is no longer with us? Who cares the most about that relationship? You were the one that brought Lucy and, your client together, right? So at the end of the $10,000 thing, the retreat, guess what your client's going to start looking for? Other ways to get closer to Lucy. And then you're not going to have a thing. You're not going to have the next step. So guess what they're going to do? They're going to go buy from somebody else who doesn't have your level of passion and your level of commitment and your level of, you were the one that brought them back together, right? So what I'm trying to say, what Road Dog just said awesomely, right, is that you have an obligation to build this journey. You have an obligation to keep them with you, right? That's it. The end. Drop the mic. Road Dog, agree?
Yeah, I love it. You know what? I'm really nervous right now, because when Business Coaching Mastery 7 comes around, you're going to have psychic readers there, and it's going to be next level. It's happening. It's happening. Stay tuned. We're going to be live.
All right,
live streaming from the event next year. It's going to be electric, is what it's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be electric.
All right.
Again, there you go, Shoot.
Let's close this thing off for the week. Boy, oh boy, we could just keep going for hours upon hours. And you guys wonder why, there's no such thing as going for a beer with Karl. It just doesn't happen. It's typically because he doesn't drink that much beer and he gets into the rum, and you can't just have one. So there you go. All right, folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man on top of the hill, the king himself, King Karl. If you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, or you aren't getting those daily emails, which, again, are going to trigger, possibly, but also drop a ton of nuggets on you every single day, visit focus.com, subscribe today, get on that. Also, if you want to learn just more about how to grow your business coaching practice, definitely check out focus.com. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share with a fellow coach or someone you think might make a great coach. And of course, as always, we'd appreciate it if you would rate the episode. And that is it for another week, folks. Remember, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.